Big game in Orchard Park for the green and white. The Jets, the road team at 4-5, taking on the Buffalo Bills at 5-5. You're watching Pregame Central. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Nunwa here in Florham Park. Caroline Hendershot and Eric Allen, the boots on the ground in Orchard Park. Anthony Becht will join us momentarily. We'll also hear from Vic Carucci. We have a loaded show. Becht, nice to see you, pal.
Good to be on, fellas. Good to be on.
So this is a huge game, Quincy, for a number of reasons. No doubt about it. The Jets coming off 2 straight losses, the Chargers and Raiders, and now facing a team that's also slid a little bit as of late. The Bills coming off a heartbreaking loss on Monday Night Football to the Denver Broncos. Just like I said, the Jets 4-5, the Bills 5-5, the first of a 2-game AFC East stretch for the green and white. Just how important is this game for both teams?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think this is an extremely important game for the Jets, right? You're talking about a team that's going against the Bills, who just lost their offensive coordinator. The Jets are one of the best defenses in the league, so this is an opportunity for them to feast, right? There's going to be a little bit of scrambling, a little bit of finding your identity with this new coordinator. I hope that the Jets can go out there and really kind of set the tone from the beginning. That way the Jets offense knows exactly what they're coming into. They get an opportunity to go against this Bills defense that's no slouch, right? But an opportunity to score some points, because that's what they've been wanting to do this whole year, score points, get better on third down. This is an opportunity to do that because then you have a game on Friday, a short week. So you really want to kind of set the tone for the rest of the season right here.
A lot of differences between when these teams played in Week 1 versus the rematch in Week 11. Specifically, you were talking about the Bills defense no longer with Tre'Davious White, no longer with Matt Milano. But Becht, Quincy just mentioned the changes on offense for the Buffalo Bills. Kind of a weird juxtaposition, and we'll talk about the new interim offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, a little bit later in the show. But when you hear the news that Ken Dorsey is let go, what's your knee-jerk reaction, considering when you look at the stats, Josh Allen, top 5 in the NFL in most categories, and same with that Bills offense?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, big picture is this is an offense that's very dangerous. When it's cooking, when they're on, they're one of the best in the league. They're one of the top 10 offenses in the league currently, and your OC still gets fired. I think the biggest thing for them has been the inconsistencies across the board, in particular their quarterback. We keep talking about our quarterback. Josh Allen's got a lot of interceptions this year. He's turned the ball over quite a bit. And, losing a game at home last week against the Denver Broncos, who I think everybody pegged and circled that would be some bit of an easy victory for them, was not as easy as they thought. And it raises questions. It obviously did internally with their coaching staff. And now with Joe Brady, this is not a great spot to be in for him. Although he has the weapons, he's got a receiver that's basically going out on social media, not happy about getting the ball. Will they try to force him the ball a little bit? Opportunity there for the Jets. Also, what is he going to try to do to attack this Jets defense? People want to see more, but how much more and how much riskier do you want to be against arguably one of the better defenses in the NFL?
Well, you were alluding to Stephon Diggs, the Bills receiver, who has been doing a great job in the early half of the season. He actually is the only receiver to score a touchdown against this Jets defense. The Jets haven't allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver since Week 1, which is crazy to think about. This is going to be a big matchup on the outside, no doubt about it. But Becht, I'm coming back to you because I think this Bills team is interesting. Like, a lot of people think the Bills are currently underachieving. A lot of people think that this Bills team just kind of is what it is at this point, 11 weeks or 10 weeks into the season, now into Week 11. Where do you stand on that position right there?
Yeah, well, you look at the big picture of everybody, is it's going to be tough to squeeze in as kind of a wild card out of this division because it's so packed up. The question is, for them, as bad as maybe they've been from a consistency standpoint, everybody's bunched up in the division. No one's literally pulling away from them and taking this division by a stronghold. So it's allowing them to figure it out if they do. If they do figure it out, they arguably from top to bottom would be the favorite for the division. But the Dolphins obviously playing today, hopefully trying to get their 7th win. And the Jets are right behind them, could really flip-flop and really sight their eyes on the Dolphins if they can get themselves a big victory. The winner of this division gets into the playoffs. I don't see another team squeezing in. So you got to win this division, and it's packed up. I think it's wide open, and teams need to pull themselves away from the Bills, and the Jets have that opportunity today.
Yeah, the AFC general, the playoff picture, very interesting. Right now, taking a look at Jason Brownlee warming up, and it's interesting because earlier this week, Robert Saleh said that there will be personnel changes after the Jets let go of Michael Carter, the running back. He didn't say what they were, but Ian Rappaport this morning, NFL Network insider, he kind of hinted at maybe some potential changes. He said, expect more looks for guys like second-year tight end Jeremy Ruckert, young wide receivers Jason Brownlee being one of them, Irvin Charles, and then, of course, Izzy Abanikanda, like Robert Saleh said, will start to receive more snaps. He's going to make his Jets debut today in the regular season. Quincy, you've been watching Jason Brownlee throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. What are realistic expectations for that former undrafted free agent, assuming he gets a significant run or more run today?
Yeah, I think, honestly, if we're just kind of thinking about how it's going to play, I think, he'll get a few snaps, right? And it'll be up to him to make the most of his snaps. You might see him get a goal ball, and if he makes the most on that snap, he might get more reps after that. I think initially, though, it's just kind of bringing in a guy to have a spark. You don't plan to play him. Usually, you don't plan to play a guy like that for the rest of the game. You want to give him some opportunities to grow into the game. Let your other guys kind of show him the way. But if he does get a lot of snaps, that means he's really been making noise, the same amount of noise that he was making during the season. But as we talk about sparks, right? You talk about the Bills, just losing their coordinator. Watching film this week, you kind of could see Stephon Diggs had a game that was a little bit off of his normal kind of way that he plays. So it kind of makes sense, right? I was a little confused about it. You think about the Bills' offense. That's a talented offense. They make plays. But those guys, when you watch the film, they were not playing the way that they usually do. So I think it'll be an interesting week, an interesting game today, because you just never know how those guys are going to kind of react to losing their coordinator, but also not playing as well as they usually do the week before.
It feels like there's like a fine line here where Stephon Diggs, similar to like what happened with Devontae Adams and the Raiders, like Antonio Pierce takes over at head coach.
Yeah.
Like, look, we're going to feed you the football. You would imagine maybe Joe Brady, the interim OC, had that kind of conversation with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Definitely something to keep in mind. But, one more thing, and I'd like to get Beck's opinion on this. It feels like the same age-old question is, for the Jets right now, we often talk about, like, what can they do differently? Quincy just laid out the Bills' defense, not quite what it used to be, at least earlier this season. Anthony Beck, what do the Jets need to do today against this defense to try to get into a rhythm early?
Execute. They're not executing. We talk about it every week. You hear Saleh talking about shaking things up. I don't know how many snaps Brownlee's going to get, but if he is dressed, it may even be just a scare tactic, right? Like, oh, okay, like if the guys are out there aren't raising their bar, AKA maybe Alan Lazard or AKA whoever those other guys are, that, these guys are dressing. These guys need to be prepared. These guys are going to get some snaps. Who's going to come up and make plays? Because Quincy knows this, man. You get a couple snaps in the game, you're fired up, and you start making some plays. Guess what? You're going to get more next week. So the best players are going to be on the football field. So this team across the board has to execute. And listen, it's tough when you're talking about in the box. You're looking at a potential another offensive line starting five today, which would be unprecedented, but seems very much like that seems like where it goes with the Jets. They're fighting that battle, but man, that makes a big difference. Run game has been down the last couple weeks. I think it attributes to just the function of all the linemen in the back and how they perform. So, and again, just having that feel for a quarterback standpoint, that internal clock is a little different when it's not five. That happens to be out in that football game, and you're taking, other players in account to different positions.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Anthony, because Xavier Newman was not elevated from the practice squad. He started at right guard last week. So, to your point, the Jets are going to do some shuffling up front. We'll see what that looks like in a couple hours. Again, 4:25 kickoff in Orchard Park. Let's go out to Orchard Park right now and speak offensive line. Caroline, Mekhi Becton has been a stabilizing force at left tackle after starting the season at right tackle.
He really has been, Ethan. He's been playing at a high standard consistently for these past, month, maybe 2 months. And when asked why he's been able to perform so well against these elite pass rushers, Mekhi said, I'm elite too. That's just what I do. Aaron Rodgers even commented on his style of play and said he's been the most consistent lineman on this line so far this year. And Mekhi just wants to come out and show everybody what he's made of. But today, he's excited to go against Von Miller because Von Miller was inactive in that week 1 matchup the Bills and the Jets had. Mekhi said today they have to focus on getting those third downs. They have to complete those. He can't miss certain blocks, and they just have to get the ball moving. These next 2 games are really important.
Von Miller still looking for his first sack of the 2023 season. To your point, Caroline didn't play in week 1 as he was recovering from that ACL injury. EA, before we get into your game day storyline, can we just get like a temperature check right now in Orchard Park?
It's not too bad yet. But I think it's going to be dipping here.
EA was born and raised
He's a
here,
Buffalo
though, so he's
guy.
used to this kind of weather.
He's a Buffalo guy.
Yes, I am. Keo, you're right. I'm from the 716. Right now, it's fine. But here in a couple hours, when that sun starts dipping, it's going to be cold, and the winds are already gusting.
Okay, definitely something to watch with the winds, especially for the specialists on both teams here. But EA, for your game day storyline, where are you going?
I'm going for the nickel cornerback position for both teams. Taron Johnson is really the guy who gets everything started for the Buffalo Bills. 53 tackles so far this season. He's got 3 forced fumbles. He was the guy who was involved in that cover 0 blitz that actually set up the game-winning field goal for the Denver Broncos. He is a very good player, a physical player, outstanding in coverage, and is a guy I think he really jump-starts their defense. On the other side of the ball, late injury ad Greens for the Jets on Saturday. Michael Carter, the valuable nickel cornerback, he's questionable with a hamstring injury. He told me this week that he watched a lot of Taron Johnson in the offseason, particularly the way he approaches man coverage. But if Carter can't go today, he's got 36 tackles, and he told me, hey, listen, I think we got the best trio of cornerbacks in the National Football League with myself, Sauce Gardner, and DJ Reed. It might be Brandon Eccles in the slot. That's something we got to watch out for the green and white when those inactives come out.
Absolutely, definitely something to keep in mind. Never a good sign when there's a late add to the injury report. We'll keep an eye on Michael Carter II. We'll check in with Orchard Park very shortly. But before we do that, let's actually take a look at the AFC East standings here in Florham Park, because right now, of course, the Dolphins are taking on the Raiders in Miami, and the Jets have a big AFC East game at 4:25. The Patriots are 2-8. They're on a bye right now. The Dolphins are up by 1 point over the Raiders, 14-13 at the half. Anthony, when you take a look at the AFC East standings, knowing that the Jets have the Bills today, then you have the Dolphins on Black Friday. I asked Quincy this earlier, but how important is this game? I know that's like a simple question, but like when you take a look at the totality of it, just how significant is this game, not only for the Jets, but for the Bills?
It's massive. We said it last week. Is this like a critical game of the year? We said yes. Well, this week, guess what? You got another one, so it's a 3-man race in this division. When you look at all those teams, if you're at the Jets' perspective, you win today, maybe the Dolphins lose. If they don't, you beat them next week. Okay, now you're in it. You're right there. So you can taste it, but what are you going to do to make those moves to start stacking wins? The team that stacks the wins here in the next couple weeks will pull themselves away, okay, from the leaders of this division and put themselves in a great position to push through in December, okay? And this game, these next couple weeks, divisional matchups are critical for every one of these 3 football teams. So it's a coin flip. They're all right there. Dolphins 6-3. I get it. They're, wherever they got one more win than the Bills, and the Jets are right there. It doesn't really matter. You take care of games this week and next week, you got to feel real good about where you're at to finish off the season in your division, and this one is a monster.
Like I said, the Dolphins right now on top of the Raiders. Third quarter's about to start. 14-13. Tyreek Hill left that game with an injury. Devon Achane left that game with an injury. His first game back, just something to watch as the Jets, again, play at 4:25. Quincy, similar question for you, though, is when you take a look at the Jets' schedule the past 2 games, I think a lot of fans are thinking, we kind of let one slip here. They had an opportunity to buy yourself some wiggle room going up against the Bills and the Dolphins, but the Bills and the Dolphins right now don't seem like the teams that they were a couple weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they took advantage of the early season. They got those wins that they needed. The Jets now really have to think about November and December football, really playing their best football. And I think if they do keep that in mind, that's the best time to play your best football anyways, right? Like, it's great that the Dolphins started off so fast. And I mean, everybody was on that bandwagon saying how good that offense was, and they've kind of slowed down a little bit. It's up to the Jets now to kind of catch up to the defense, right? Offensively, they just haven't been performing at the same level as the defense. But if they can put that together, they still have a few more weeks left in the season. This is the best time to do that, right? You really get to kind of run the ball. It's starting to get cold, right? Like, this is what this team was built for. So if they can kind of manage that, I think it's a good time to do it.
I definitely agree with that. It's time to go back out to Orchard Park with a couple Orchard Park legends. So, EA, take it away.
Nobody knows more about the Buffalo Bills than Vic Carucci. Vic, what's going on here in Western New York? Monday Night Football, a couple hours later, Sean McDermott fires Ken Dorsey, replaces him with Joe Brady.
Yeah, crazy things. And you're right. It felt such like almost surreal in the sense that you had a game that the Bills seemingly had won, and there was no reason to think after the missed field goal from 41 yards, game over, and you're packing things up in the press box, and then 12 men on the field. So it's that sort of thing that happened, and that makes you question a lot of things about where this team's collective head is, and the one cranium in question the most is that of their star quarterback, Josh Allen.
Vic, on paper, the Jets are a nightmare matchup for the Bills on a short week. We saw what this Jets defense did to the Bills in week one.
Right.
The 4 takeaways, the repeated hounding of Josh Allen. What kind of changes can the Bills make in such a short amount of time against one of the best defenses in the National Football League?
Right, and that's where the timing of the move, fire Ken Dorsey and then replace him on an interim basis with Joe Brady, who had been the quarterback's coach, former OC with Carolina Panthers. So he has some experience with that in the NFL. But a short week to prepare for this defense is a looming question. I think Josh Allen is going to be heavily involved, or was, in the planning of what this game plan is for today, and actually how these plays will be called. I think Josh will have a lot of leeway to do what he wants to do. I'd expect to see him run a lot. I would expect to see him work under center and the team do a lot of running play action.
Vic, the guys here back in the studio, and Anthony Beck, we're talking about personnel changes on the Jets' offensive side of the ball. Obviously, they want to get something going. We saw the Jets move the football very well early last week against the Raiders. What can you tell us about the Bills' defense and potentially where the Jets can exploit a team that has changed a lot since we saw them in week one?
Yeah, the amazing part of the fact that they're missing 5 defensive starters is that, or were last week. Now I think it's down to maybe 3 or 4. But the fact that they have that many defensive starters out of the lineup and have had them out for so long, this defense has held up pretty well. So the way to exploit them, I think, is to run the football, keep them honest, keep the pass rush honest. The Jets working with yet another different offensive line grouping.
Yeah, right.
So I think you would assume that the pass rush could have some advantage there from the Bills' end. And the way to tame it and slow it down is run the football effectively. A lot of carries for Breece Hall. It looked like Dalvin Cook was getting going against the Raiders. So I think they need to get that momentum going.
Is this going to be a nervous crowd if this game is tight early? The Bills 5-5, they're on a 2-game losing streak, and there were high expectations for this team to start the year.
Actually, I will say for sure, nervous doesn't begin to explain it in terms of the whole, vibe in Western New York, and especially what you'll feel here today. If it's a typical Bills-Jets game, which has been close, competitive, right? Defensive, slug it out, old school football. I think that is where you would see a tenseness, if you will, and the idea that can the Bills be patient? Because that, to me, is the other key. Offensively, Josh in this offense not forcing things the way they did in that Monday opener.
What do you think is going to happen here, fourth quarter? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've picked the Bills to win this game only because I think overall they should, based on, let's say talent to talent, relatively speaking. They certainly haven't played well enough to have any faith that they're going to do it, but I'll go with the Bills in a close win.
It was great seeing him, my old friend. That's Vic Carucci. Back to you, Greens.
Awesome. Thanks, EA. Thanks, Vic. Anthony, I'm going to start with you because you were fired up earlier this week at our production meeting when you heard that Joe Brady would be taking over for offensive coordinator, the Bills quarterback coach. Again, used to have that title as offensive coordinator in Carolina. Your thoughts on the move?
Well, listen, Joe Brady had a big-time college season, and he thought maybe jumping in the NFL, he'd have all the answers. And for a year and a half, 2 years, he was embarrassed. I mean, what you could say, he didn't have players, whatever it was, but he could not function. Rated at the bottom of the NFL in total offense and passing. So this is, to me, not an upgrade, okay, period. For the Buffalo Bills, okay? Buffalo Bills were a top 10 offense, post Denver Broncos team, okay? But they just haven't been consistent. And I look at the players more than I look at the coach as far as what their problems have been. We talk about it here with the Jets. It's lack of execution. Well, when Quincy, I'm sure I don't want to put words in his mouth, but when I watch their film, I see the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I see, more turnovers for this team, undisciplined, taking care of the football in all skill positions and not getting the football to their best player, which again, like Quincy said, boggles my mind, because if you're a competent coordinator and a quarterback that understands, what guys can do, yeah, you can be a guy that draws the defense to you and gets the ball to somebody else, but you better have 8 plays that these are go get Diggs the football kind of plays, right? You always got those in your back pocket. So those will be things, again, for me that I want to see, because, Joe Brady, to me, again, and this is not to throw a dart at somebody, he's not an upgrade as a play caller to Ken Dorsey.
It's a weird juxtaposition in Buffalo. Josh Allen is the 4th player to lead the NFL in total touchdowns and total giveaways through his team's first 10 weeks of the season. He has 26 total touchdowns. He has 11 picks and 3 fumbles, so total of 14 giveaways. Going off of what Anthony said, though, Quincy, as a player, when you make a change like that at OC, the stats, are what they are. Buffalo's very good offense. When you make a change like that, maybe Sean McDermott is hoping for a spark on that side of the ball. When you're a frustrated player, whether you're someone like Stephon Diggs or you're turning the ball over like Josh Allen, what does a change like that, what could something like that do for you?
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself, a spark, right? I think it's important for those guys to find some way to kind of bring in some energy, because, like I said, watching the film, not only did I see Stephon Diggs kind of doing some unfamiliar things, it felt as though, I hate to challenge a guy's effort, but it didn't feel like his effort was where it was supposed to be. He wasn't getting off the reroutes, all those different things. It felt like something else was there. So when you see the tweets coming out from his brother, and then you see the offensive coordinator getting fired, it starts to kind of make sense. So, I think going into this week, there's a possibility that they do try to get him the ball a little bit more. You talk about Davante Adams, he had an opportunity the following week, and they really pressed to make sure that he got the ball when they played the Jets, right? So you can see that happening here. I think those guys needed a spark. This isn't the defense that you want to kind of go up against when you're trying some new things. The Jets are one of the best defenses in the league, but we're going to see what they bring out. Joe Brady, like AB said, may not be Ken Dorsey, but I think he's going to try to bring out his best, because all these guys are looking for another opportunity.
Solomon Thomas, one of the guys on the Jets D-line that sacked Josh Allen a total of 5 times in Week 1. And like I said earlier, Bills today, 4:25, then a short week as the Jets take on the Dolphins in the first ever Black Friday game on November 24th. You can enter the Back in Black sweepstakes for your chance to win a stealth black Jets jersey autographed by Garrett Wilson by texting Garrett, that's 2 R's and 2 T's, to 26154. First of all, great jersey. Looks awesome in the stealth black. I would highly suggest that if I were you watching this. Let's bring in everybody. Anthony Beck from Ames and the crew in Orchard Park for our X Factors. And let's start in Orchard Park. Caroline, who are you going for your X Factor today?
My X Factor is going to be Breece Hall, and that's because in this Week 1 matchup, when Breece Hall was limited in the number of snaps he took coming off that ACL rehab, he only took 17 snaps. He had 10 carries for 127 yards, and he had that 83 really 83-yard, really long run in that game. So if he's able to shake loose today, you know he's going to book it. You know he's going to get those yards. So I just think that is someone to watch for because now he's no longer limited.
That's a great one. I'm going to go with Bills rookie tight end Dalton Kincaid. Over the last 3 games, guys, 20 catches, nearly 200 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. The Jets got to make sure they contain him because, as Quincy talked about before, they're definitely going to try to get Stefon Diggs the ball. But Kincaid is a guy who's emerging for this offense.
Well, Coach Saleh has talked multiple times about shaking things up with some of the players offensively to try to get things going. Well, my X factors is Nathaniel Hackett and his offensive staff. What is going to be done to build some type of flow in this game? Okay, we're talking about now, when you look at the record of this football team, you've had plenty of time now to come up with an identity and figure out how we can utilize the weapons and get guys in the right spot. And just like Coach Saleh said, it was the players got to be better and execute the play calling and utilizing the weapons that you have in the proper way to score 2 touchdowns. Okay, guys? That's not a big ask when you're looking at the totality of the NFL. 2 touchdowns. Can they find a way to drum that up so that their defense can go out there and continue to do what they're doing and win this football game?
Yeah, so, we heard a little bit from Vic Carucci saying that in order to slow down the pass rush, you have to have, a great run game. So we're here, I'm thinking the Jets' pass rush against Josh Allen is going to be a challenge, right? We talked about previously when they played, it was always that issue for Josh Allen. And I think you see it most times. The secondary are the ones who are bearing the fruits of the pass rush's labor. But I think it'll be important for the Jets pass rush to get home, make it a little bit challenging. You got a running quarterback, so they're going to try to run the ball to slow that down. But I think as long as those guys keep recycling in and fresh, there's no way they're not going to make an impact in this game.
We've been talking a lot about Joe Brady, the new offensive coordinator for the Bills. I want to go with the Jets DC and Jeff Ulbrich because the Jets have had Josh Allen's number. We saw it in Week 1, 5 sacks, 4 turnovers. Allen has a 79 passer rating in his career against the Jets. That's the lowest against any opponent with a minimum of 3 starts. And so maybe there will be some new wrinkles from Joe Brady and that Bills offensive side of the ball, and it's up to Jeff Ulbrich and the Jets defense to counter that in-game at halftime. So that's definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, All In or Not Today. And usually we have a little bit of a back and forth between Caroline Hendershot and Anthony Beck. So this is what I'm going to do. We're going to set up the stage. We'll set up the boxing ring. Beck, the floor is yours before Caroline can rebuttal.
Oh, I get to go first? Listen, Caroline, I would have let you go on first, but hey, I'll take the floor here. Number 1, listen, I'm on a win streak, guys. I just won last week, so right now I'm feeling really good about myself. Caroline, you got that beautiful assorted color of puffer jackets that you brought out. You got the black one on today. I'm a little worried about that press pass that's wrapped around your arm. Blood flow is a little thin when you got that thing as tight as it is. So hopefully you can come up with the proper decision in today's All In or Not to win, or I may just catch up with you with another W on my end.
Caroline, you feeling the heat at all?
I'm actually not feeling the heat because here's the thing. I think a certain someone, and that certain someone may or may not be in last place, but they were talking on the pre-show little meeting, and they were saying, do you think I can go last so I can hear everyone's answers so that I can then plan accordingly? So all I'm saying is I have double the amount of wins that AB has. I'm going first, and I'm not afraid.
All I'm saying.
Hey, real quick, you know what they say with Michigan? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right, Caroline?
Oh, you know what? If you're tuning in to Jets Pregame Central, you're in for a show. Let's take a look at the All In or Not Today records right now. For anyone who's new to this is where we stand. Caroline and Anthony are a couple games apart. Caroline's there at 4-5, tied with EA. Anthony right now at 2-7, like he said, on a win streak. The fans at 3-6. Quincy at 6-3. I'm at 7-2. Quincy and I have been sharing a brain lately, and usually, we don't. I go first. I'm going after Quincy, but we have not communicated where we're going on our answers. But Caroline, you said it best. you're going first. This is the question, okay? The question is, and the fans also voted on it. Unfortunately, we didn't show what the question was earlier. That's on me. But here it is. The Jets will force at least 2 turnovers today against the Buffalo Bills. Caroline Hendershot, all in or not today?
I'm going to go not today, and the only reason that I'm going to say that is because I think that Josh Allen had too many turnovers last game that he played, and with this new offensive coordinator, this new system, I think he's going to be playing a little bit more conservatively. So I do think that the Jets defense will wreak havoc. I just do not think that it will be 2 turnovers today.
EA?
I guess I got to go. I'm going not today as well. I do actually think the Jets are going to have 2 takeaways. They might have 3 takeaways, but lately I've been getting everything wrong, so I'm flipping the script. It's not today.
So we got a little reverse psychology there in Orchard Park. You know what? We're shaking things up on our end, too. Anthony has requested to go last. So, like Caroline, divulged the little state secrets there in our production meeting, which means, Quincy, the floor is yours. All in or not today, 2 turnovers for the green and white.
Man, I really thought I was doing something today. And something told me, go all in. Go all in. Switch it up. I said it. I think Jordan heard me say it. I said, man, I don't want to doubt myself. And look at it. Everybody else is not today, and guess what? I'm also not today. So, hold on. They got me on all in.
Hey,
I'll take it.
Wait. Okay, we need an official ruling right now. Are you all in or are you not today?
I am not today.
Okay.
I am not today. So I'm going not today. I looked at the percentages, right? The Jets usually take the ball away 1.7 times. The Bills give it away 1.8. It's not exactly 2 for either team. So I'm like, listen, maybe it'll work out. So we'll see.
Make it 4 for 4. I am all.
Oh my God.
I'm not today too. Quincy's a
I should have went all in, man.
He had an opportunity, and this is why we don't say what we're gonna do before we do it. And here's the thing: I'm not today because I agree with Caroline. The Bills have been turning the ball over a lot lately. Maybe Joe Brady will give them a spark, maybe not. But I am not today. And that brings us to Anthony Becht, who, if I were to wager, which I will not do because I'm not a gambling man, I feel like in order to flip the script from Ames, Iowa, Becht might go all in. Is that right?
Don't pop it up, Sickoff. Read my lips as I'm talking here. Clearly, I went an angle earlier. There's a mole in the building, and you guys flipped all your answers the same. So I'm going to go out with a little strategy here.
We're not even in the building.
I'm all in today. The Jets will get 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
Listen, again, strategy in play, but let's be honest, guys. It wasn't pretty versus the Broncos. This defense is better than the Broncos. Let's see if they can clean up their act. The Bills, I don't know if they can do it in a week. And the wind, the weather, whatever that may be, maybe that helps the Jets. I'm all in.
I love it. Anthony Becht, all in, trying to make up for some lost ground. EA, don't go anywhere. We're going to hear the inactives in a minute. But before we do, let's just hear from the fans or see what they did. The fans, 74% are in agreement with Anthony Becht. The Jets will have at least 2 turnovers. Only 26% agree with Quincy, me, Caroline, and EA. Obviously, we'll see what happens. Let's go back out to Orchard Park. EA, today's inactives are whom?
Creighton's quickly. Randall Cobb, Billy Turner, Austin DeColis, Chaz Surratt, then Sam, obviously the linebacker. I'm going to let you handle his pronunciation again. And then finally, Carl Lawson and Michael Carter. I just got to say really quickly, as far as Michael Carter is concerned, he was added to the injury report on Saturday. He was listed as questionable. The assumption here is Brandon Eccles will take over at the nickel spot.
Definitely something to keep in mind. Thank you, EA. Thank you, Caroline. The big news for the Jets, like EA just said, Michael Carter II out of the lineup. Will McDonald now back inserted into the lineup after dealing with an ankle injury. That's all we have time for today on Pregame Central. Make sure to stay tuned for Jets overtime following the game. 4:25 kickoff in Orchard Park.